What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Call of Duty World War II on BlackTideTV. In today's episode, the campaign of Call of Duty World War II. With the release of Call of Duty Black Ops 4 later this year to not include campaign mode, I was feeling a little hypocritical in saying that I've played the campaign of every previous Call of Duty game. I hadn't yet played the campaign of Call of Duty World War II. I usually make it a habit of playing the campaign mode before I delve into any multiplayer. The campaign is usually an amazing place to start. It gives you a feel for the game, how the movement works, how the weapons work, the best weapons, the weapons you might prefer, and then you get into multiplayer and you have a competitive advantage in that you know how to use a lot of the things that some people may be unlocking at later stages in the multiplayer tier progression, and they're like, okay, this weird kind of smoke grenade or this weird kind of tactical or lethal grenade or this weird attachment that I've just unlocked, not really sure how to use that, whereas you usually get a handle on most of the weapons in the game by playing through campaign. So I like to play campaign first. I guess it got away from me this year. I'm not sure. I don't think I played the campaign first in Infinite Warfare either, but that was because that game launched and multiplayer was readily available like a day before the game came out. Whereas World War II, I think I just put it on the back burner and never came back to it. But this weekend, I just finished up the game, and I'd like to talk about it here today because there are some really huge discrepancies between multiplayer and campaign, and there's some things in campaign that I really enjoyed, and some things that could have been improved. So I've got some positives, some negatives, some really harsh criticism, but we're going to get into all of that today, and then we're also going to be including the features in campaign that weren't in multiplayer, which should have been in multiplayer because that was part of the campaign that I really enjoyed. So first things first, the campaign takes place obviously in World War II just after D-Day in 1944, and it's all based in the European theater of war. Previous World War II games, we've been jumping around. We've been in Japan a little bit, we've been in Russia, we've been all over the place. But in this game, they are really focused on this one group of soldiers in their advance across Europe into Germany. So it is a really tight-knit story, and it's really based on one squadron, and really it takes itself really seriously in that this is a squad game and you need to rely on your squad. They hand you things, they throw you med packs, they throw you ammo crates, things like that. And realistically, you are hoping to get a connection with these characters, but I found the writing and the plot to just not give me enough to really feel an emotional connection, but we'll come back to that. What I'm saying is that we are really focused on this one little team, and it isn't even the greater war that we're looking at. It should have been called Call of Duty 5 guys in the 1st Infantry Division, or whatever division they're in. I think that's the Bloody First. I think that's 1st Infantry, but it should have been called Call of Duty Firsts or Call of Duty 1st Infantry because we're really focused on these people and not even the war as a whole. But that's not a bad thing. It's not a great thing either. Like I said, the writing wasn't fantastic. But let's get into the more important stuff first. Gameplay. I found the gameplay in Call of Duty World War II campaign to be incredibly immersive and rewarding. Whenever we weren't sitting in cutscenes and discussing our emotional significance to each other, I found the game to be really impactful, really forceful, and it really jumped into your lap. Like, it felt like you were in World War II. It was very immersive. The game looks really great. The graphics are phenomenal. There's smoke and there's just heartbreak happening everywhere. Of course, you're seeing the gameplay from the D-Day mission, and you're just seeing dead people, and like it's like a Band of Brothers really esque kind of game where they drop you right into it, and you're really experiencing all of that, and you can kind of lean from this game and be like, yeah, wow, this is really what the World War would have been like. And it's a really immersive experience, and I would definitely recommend, if you are going to play this campaign, or even if you have played the campaign, to go ahead and play it on veteran mode as well, because veteran mode just makes it that much more intense and that much more realistic, where 2 bullets and you are going to die. You have to heal yourself after you've been hit with 1 bullet, and it really takes it a lot more seriously in veteran mode as well. You will die a lot more. I'm not going to lie to you. I've cut out a lot of my deaths from the gameplay. This is, of course, veteran gameplay. but the game just feels that much more rewarding when you're playing on Veteran, and I think that stands for almost all of the Call of Duty games, but this game in particular just feels really, really good in Veteran mode, because it's a more realistic, grounded kind of game. We've been into these futuristic Call of Duties for a while, but with this one, where we're back to the past, we're back to a realistic setting, it really feels good to be playing it in a realistic way. And even in Veteran mode, you won't get hit markers when you hit enemies, and there's like other little things there. I wish they had completely neutralized the HUD altogether. Your health, your ammo, I wish they had taken it all out and given you that really hardcore feel, so that you can only see your gun, and you just have to kind of remember how many bullets you have. I found that the ammo was really scarce in Veteran mode as well. You would be firing at enemies, and I think they take like 2 or 3 shots to kill enemies for the most part, but you would be running out of ammo very, very quickly. And of course, as you progress through the campaign as well, you start to lose some of your squad mates that provide you with unlimited ammo, unlimited health packs. Depending on which mission you are doing, you don't have the object to use all of your abilities, and it makes it feel really hectic. It makes it feel really stressful because you can't just get unlimited health whenever you want. You really have to buckle down and just hold your position and wait until something happens, or until you finally have a break. And you're going to see that later in the gameplay, where I'm pinned down in a barn house and I have like a fraction of a health bar left. If an enemy comes over and flicks me, I'm going to die, and I'm holed up in this barn because I can't move. I'm terrified for my life, and I've made it so far. I don't know where the last checkpoint was, and it gets really stressful, and that's what I really love about the Call of Duty World War II campaign. The gameplay is immersive, and it feels really, really great. There are also a bunch of cool new mechanics in this game that I don't think were really that present in previous Call of Duty games, such as decision making. There are a few moments in the campaign. They aren't like huge decisions. It's not a Telltale game where you say one thing and that completely impacts everything you do from now to the end of time. But there are small decisions that you have to make in terms of saving this person or that person. I can't exactly remember the immediate decisions that were definitely mandatory, but there were a few decisions where you could choose which direction you wanted to attack a place from. You could choose how you were going to engage enemies, if you're going to go in guns blazing, if you're going to sneak around, and there were a lot of stealth combat sections, which I really enjoyed. I think stealth combat has always been a great part of the Call of Duty series. Back in the Modern Warfare series, stealth combat was fantastic. I like how you can do these heroic actions in saving your squad mates, and that will provide you with better abilities later on in the game. And really just conversing with NPCs. There's a moment where you're sneaking through a Nazi base and you are undercover, and you have to remember all of the information on your passport or your papers, and then they would ask you questions about your papers. If you'd say the wrong thing to them, they would suspect you, and they'd be like, okay, let me see your papers. Where are you from? And you'd be like, I'm from Hamburg, Germany. And they'd be like, oh yeah, okay, you're okay, go on through. And it was just like some little elements like that that made the game feel a little bit more alive when you're actually conversing with NPCs, instead of just running in action man kind of Call of Duty, generic Call of Duty games, spraying and praying and killing everybody. It really made the game feel a little bit more alive when you're talking to these NPCs and you have these decisions, and there are optional objectives at certain points where, oh, you can kill this guy, it'll make the battle down the road a little bit easier. So I do like some of these newer mechanics. They aren't new in the world of video games, but they're new to the Call of Duty franchise for the most part, and I really did enjoy those moments. That being said, this leads us into some of our lesser great moments. So that self-same mission where you're sneaking through that Nazi base, you were playing as a French resistance person named Russo. Russo only gets one mission. She appears at the very, very end of a mission, and then she gets that one stealth mission, and then you never hear from her again. And I believe there are a few other secondary characters that you play as. There's one guy that controls a tank, and you drive that tank around, and his buddies are all dying because like their tank gets exploded, and you're all like, your guy's like, oh no, my best friend just got blown up in a tank, but you've just met this character, and in 5 minutes from now, you will never see this character again for the rest of the game. So you can't really get that connection to, oh no, your buddies in the tank just got destroyed, because you haven't been playing as this person. You don't know what this person's story is, but you play as this person in the tank for maybe 5-10 minutes out of a single mission, not even the entire mission, and you're done with him. You play as a pilot at one point as well. You're flying the plane around, and it's a really cool segment. but unfortunately you only get that segment once. So a lot of the secondary characters that are available to you, they are there and then they are gone for the rest of the game. Like, you only get to experience other characters very, very, very briefly, which again really brings us back full circle to Call of Duty Bloody Firsts Warfare, or whatever you want to call this game, where it's really, really focused on these specific characters in your squad. And when it comes to those specific characters, Daniels, that's your main character, the player that you play as throughout the entire game. I love how he has a face. I love how he has a voice, because we haven't seen that in previous Call of Duty games. We're not just a gun that's hanging off of some floating arms in the air. You can actually see yourself in certain cutscenes. Your guy will be talking to other people. He's got a backstory. There's Red Daniels, Private Red Daniels, and he's got his wife at home, and she's pregnant with a kid, and there's like all of these little elements that kind of make, like, they're trying to make you care about your character, but your character is so stiff. He has his backstory and he has a lot of things going for him, but I don't know if it's the way he was voice acted, if it's just the way that the story went, but I found that the character himself, he was so stiff, and like, he was just, there was no character to him. Like, he seemed concerned about other people, but not in a way that you would expect. Like, Zussman, your best guy, is always in trouble. He's always getting stabbed or getting kidnapped or something. And your guys was like, oh no, Zussman, let's go and do this now. Like, you don't really feel the connection that he has to other characters. I don't know, again, if it was just poor writing or if it was really just poor voice acting. I felt like the voice was fine. I felt like the character was fine, but I don't know, there were just certain things that it just really didn't make me feel connected. Like, there wasn't enough character building moments in this game. I don't care about my squad mates except for their unique abilities. So when certain squad mates start to die or start to go missing or they aren't available in a certain mission, I'm like, damn, I really wish whatever his name was here, because I could really use some ammo right now. I would be like, yep, I really wish the ammo guy was here. I don't know his name, but I know he gives me ammo and I really wish I had that. So they didn't do enough in terms of character building. They did have a ton of cutscenes. They had a ton of little character moments. But again, I don't know if it was the writing or the voice acting, but the character moments didn't strike a chord like they should have. They weren't as impactful as they should have been. Not like the gameplay, because the gameplay really puts you in that setting of World War II, and they really make you feel things when you're playing the game. Like, it feels really realistic. And then you get into these character moments and it's like, I don't really believe what's going on here. And there's little backstories to each of the characters that they try to get you in on. And, oh, you got to learn a little bit more about your commanding officers because they did this thing one time. But it really ends up that you just don't care. And I really felt like that was the weakest point of this game, was just the characters were not great enough to make you feel anything. It wasn't like a Modern Warfare series where we know the characters. We know Captain Soap McTavish. We know Captain Price. We know the characters from the Modern Warfare franchise because they really made an impact on us over a few games. Maybe it's because this is just the first game in the franchise, if this is going to be a franchise, which I'm not really putting money on, but maybe it's just because it's the first game that they didn't have enough time to develop the characters. Realistically, the World War is done by the end of the game, so I can't imagine they're going to come back to this setting or this character set. So honestly, I don't know. I just feel like the characters just weren't great, and I keep coming back to that, and that's going to be a major negative from the campaign of Call of Duty World War II. They also tried to slip in some broad-stroked messages about anti-Semitism and racism. They, at the very end of the game, spoiler alert if you haven't played, like I said, the story isn't that great anyways. You're playing for the gameplay purposes, so realistically, spoilers shouldn't matter. But at the very end of the game, like final mission, second last mission, your buddy Zussman gets kidnapped, and oh my gosh, he's a Jew. So he gets sent to the containment camps, and basically by the end of the mission, you're like, okay, well, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to join back into the military, and I'm going to go ahead and try and find this guy. So the epilogue is you just walking through all kinds of camps, like where they kept all the Jews, and you are basically just looking through, and your guy's taking pictures, and you're seeing like these picture comparisons of what the World War was like, and all this is tragic, and oh, this is really bad, you shouldn't be anti-Semite. And there's a couple moments where there's another black character who isn't in your squad, but he links up with your squad at some point, and they make a really big deal about one guy on your squad is like racist. He's like, oh, I'm not gonna shake your hand because you're black. Oh, I'm not gonna talk to you because you're black. Oh, I don't trust you. You're an engineer, but I don't know if we're gonna let you do this. And it's like, that's just a really, really blatantly obvious message. And we don't need that. Like, we know that black people weren't as accepted as they are now in World War II. We didn't need it shoved down our throats like that. And then by the end of the game, you're literally forced to watch that guy who was racist earlier be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna shake your hand because you did such a good job out there. And it was just so unbelievable. Like, they crammed it down your throat, and I was like, this is just dumb. So there were some really obvious, like, oh, don't go to war, don't be anti-Semite, don't be racist messages, and oh, you always got to be part of your squad. So they tried to get in some emotional messages with the emotional significance, and it just did not work. The final mission is a huge letdown. That mission after your buddy the Jew gets kidnapped. You're then going out to finally cross the Rhine, and it really doesn't even matter at that point. Like, your guy is so set on finding your buddy Zussman that he doesn't care about winning the war anymore. He's just like, okay, we completely crossed the Rhine and we basically just won the war, but I don't care about anything because I want to go find Zussman. And let's be honest, the final mission itself, you're crossing a bridge and there is no big action set piece. There is nothing really amazing about it. There's like a couple mortar strikes and there's like planes that are attacking and you shoot them down, but there isn't a huge moment like in previous games where there's a big moment, and there are big moments throughout the campaign that you'll experience, but there wasn't a big moment at the very end, which there should have been a big moment, and there wasn't. You just kind of cross this bridge and you corner the Nazis in this cave, and then you're like, okay, well, that's it for that, and then we're gonna go to the epilogue where we walk around a little bit, shoot one guy, and the game is over. Good job. And it just felt like it fizzled out, and there wasn't enough towards the end of the game. That being said, the game was extremely short as well. The game was only 11 missions, and I shit you not, maybe 2 or 3 of those missions were only about 5 to 10 minutes long. There was one mission with a train where you basically finished the mission within 10 minutes because you're on a timer. Like, you had to get on the train by a certain point, the train moved at a certain speed, and then you had a little segment after the train, and even if you were taking your time, the mission took 10 minutes, and that was 1 out of 11. There were 11 missions, and that just felt like so lackluster. There wasn't enough, and they skipped so much time. They would be like, okay, it's, I don't know, like June of 1944, and then the next mission takes place in March of 1945, and it's like, well, what happened during the and the commentator would come on, oh, it's been 8 weeks since this happened. Well, what happened in those 8 weeks? It's not like you're just sitting on your ass. Like, you're in Germany-occupied Europe right now. You're not just sitting on your ass every day for 8 weeks. Like, you're out there fighting. I want to be a part of that fighting. I don't want you to skip all this time. And they could have put a lot more into the game, but I feel like, again, it comes back to the writing, and they didn't feel like they could fill in that gap with good writing, because they really kind of forced your team together and you're trying to overcome your differences. And I feel like if they had more time with your squad, you would have overcome your differences a little bit quicker, and then the final conclusion of the game wouldn't have been as significant. So I don't know, it all comes back to the writing, and I can't get past it. Previous Call of Duty games have been written so well and directed so well. The Modern Warfare franchise comes back to mind. Infinite Warfare, in fact, was one of the best campaigns in the entire Call of Duty franchise, and I recommend that you go back and play Infinite Warfare. I know a lot of people don't like that game, and a lot of people didn't get it for the multiplayer, but the campaign alone is fantastic in that game. It's really great, and the writing, the stakes are a lot better in that game, where you actually care about your squad. That is another game where they really stuck to this squad element, and it was like, okay, these are your people, you got to protect your people, and when people start dying, you actually care in that game, whereas in this game, it's like, well, that sucks. War is war, I guess. Like, you don't really care. I would have to say that because of this, video games need real directors. And that was one of my major problems. Right at the very end of the game, credits roll, directed by Michael Condrey and Glenn Schofield. Well, they're game developers. And game developers and directors have two very, very different jobs. I would say that games like this, a big action game where realistically, Call of Duty is compared to a lot of big action movies a lot. Why don't we have a really great director on this? Like, game developers are great and they have a lot of cool ideas, but we need a serious, like, guy that's really oriented into making things look good and to making you feel things about characters, like a real, like a movie director in here. Like, get somebody like, I don't know, Michael Bay, Joss Whedon, I don't know about Michael Bay, but, you know, like a really big, well-known director to direct a big action set-piece heavy movie and then call it Call of Duty. You don't need, like, game developers and directors should have their own separate chairs on the committee here for Activision Call of Duty development, because it's really what made this story suffer, was it just wasn't directed, wasn't written well. There needed to be a better plot. There needed to be a few more really empathetic moments. There was poor writing, poor storytelling. They went for that Band of Brothers type of feel, and they just missed the mark. But on the other hand, the gameplay was very rewarding, very tight, and there was a lot of fun segments. There was an on-rails segment where you'd be like dragging somebody and you'd stop every now and then and shoot at some Nazis. There were some cool driving segments. There was dogfighting, like I mentioned. You pilot a plane at some point. There were tank fights, so there were a lot of really cool moments, stealth moments, and really big action-heavy moments. The gameplay felt really rewarding and really immersive, but it's just that writing just let it down. So if you're looking for a game that you really want to just jump in and play as though you are playing in World War II, this is that game. And especially, like I mentioned, play on veteran, and it's a lot higher. The stakes are a lot higher. When you're pinned down, you are pinned down. But by no means is this a story-driven game, despite it being very heavily a story-driven game. Play for the gameplay and for the interesting elements in the campaign that didn't make it to multiplayer, which unfortunately I think I'll be saving for a separate video. We're already running pretty low on time. I want to have a full video talking about the really, really cool things about the campaign in terms of gameplay, in terms of special weaponry, special attachments, special abilities that didn't make it into multiplayer. There were a ton of things that I noticed right off the bat. Very first mission, you'll be noticing things playing this campaign and you're like, why was this not in multiplayer? It would have made the multiplayer way better or way more different. Maybe not better, but better in a different kind of way. So we're going to talk about that in a separate video. But what did you think about the Call of Duty World War II campaign? If you've played it, let me know in the comment section down below. Are you in the same boat with me, or did you actually find an emotional connection to the characters in the story? Because I just can't get past it. It seemed so off. I was not sympathetic with any of the characters' problems. I just didn't care. I just knew that when that guy dies, I'm going to lose that really great ability, which I was kind of enjoying in the game. So let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to subscribe and activate your notifications by turning on that little bell. Like I've said, I've got another Call of Duty World War II campaign multiplayer comparison video coming out. We'll be talking about all those crazy elements that you may have even noticed in today's gameplay that aren't in multiplayer. I've also got a few other videos planned. One with Borderlands gameplay, talking about some things from E3 2018. And I've also got another racing gameplay coming out. Burnout Paradise Remastered, of course. What is a better racing game to play for the PlayStation 4? And we're going to be talking about what makes a great racing game. So I've got a few other videos coming out, so make sure you're subscribed and you are turning on those notifications so you don't miss them when I do upload. Follow me on Twitter. There's a link in the description down below. I really hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.